and welcome to this week's episode of LinkedIn with Louise. This week, I'm really excited to talk to you about LinkedIn Stories. This is a feature that not a lot of my network are using at the moment because I'm interacting with other people's stories. And interestingly, the people I'm interacting with aren't necessarily the people I would consider to be the people that I would interact most on posts in the news feed in my LinkedIn network, which is really interesting. It's also, I'm getting more interaction and engagement with people who live outside of the UK and Ireland on Instagram, or Instagram stories, on LinkedIn stories. There we go. We know where it's come from. Let's talk about stories. Okay. Before we dive into the episode this week, though, I want to invite you to book a call with me to see how I can help you with your LinkedIn. When you're hearing this, we have less than 2 months left of 2020, the year that no one expected, could be a way you could call it this year. And my business has changed a lot in 2020. Still focusing entirely on LinkedIn, but I've been doing a lot of VIP sessions with clients, which I'm really loving, and where we do a 3-hour deep dive into updating your LinkedIn profile and then explaining how you can use LinkedIn to grow your visibility on this platform and get business as a result. So really, really enjoying those. I've also been doing quite a bit of work with my corporate clients, and I'm loving that as well. So I've been doing packages with my corporate clients where we do like an overview of LinkedIn, and then we do a workshop, a couple of hours of a workshop with teams of like sales and marketing teams and senior level executive teams to go through our LinkedIn profiles, update them and explain how you can really leverage this platform for your company as a whole whenever people work together as a team. So if either of those sound appealing to you, why don't you book a chat with me? Pop over to socialbni.com and /call and organise a 15-minute call with me and see if we are a good fit for each other and finish out 2020 strong on your LinkedIn. All right, LinkedIn stories, not Instagram stories. Have you tried using LinkedIn stories yet? How can you use this feature to help you in your business? Do you even know where to find LinkedIn stories? And why have LinkedIn brought out stories? Oh, there's so much stuff to get stuck into today. So starting with why they've brought out stories actually would be a good place to start. And it's really down to the next generation of users, I suppose, on LinkedIn. People in their 20s and early 30s are used to using the story format over on their Instagram, and they like it. It's a really quick and easy way to communicate and contact people. People like creating the short format videos, the throwing up the short posts on those other platforms, and it just makes sense for LinkedIn to include it as part of what they're doing. The LinkedIn's Vice President of Product, a guy called Kiran Prasad, was quoted in the Australian Financial Review saying that while people come to LinkedIn mostly to find people and jobs, a huge thing they've switched to now is around coming to find a place of community, somewhere people can talk and feel like they can get some help in a tough time right now. So it's really about connecting with your network. And very interestingly, people who see your stories are the people who are your first level connections or the people who follow you on LinkedIn. So what are LinkedIn stories and how can you access them? One major thing to realize about LinkedIn stories is you can only create them or view them on your mobile app. This is very different to the other platforms where you can view stories on Facebook and Instagram when you're on your desktop. A lot of people use LinkedIn on the desktop and therefore aren't seeing anything to do with stories. And that is quite interesting to me because I would mainly use LinkedIn on my desktop. I do use it on my mobile. And actually, since LinkedIn stories have come out, it's pushed me more to mobile, which I think is pretty interesting. How do you find out if you have them? Most of you listening should have them by now, but if you haven't triggered them yet, you won't know that you've got them. So if you grab your mobile phone and open up your mobile app for LinkedIn, at the bottom of the screen, there will be a little plus sign that says post, and that's how you add a post. When you click on that button, your whole screen opens up and it will have a list of options. Add a photo, take a video, celebrate an occasion, add a document, share that you're hiring, find an expert, create a poll. And at the very bottom, it says share a story. That's the one you want to click on. You can add in an image here. You can add a video, or you can create a video or take a picture of either yourself or whatever it is you're looking at. Something that's lacking a little bit here is the ability to just start writing on a screen, like a colored background. So it's really quick and easy for me to make Instagram stories because I just use their colored background and start typing and adding stickers and all that kind of stuff. But LinkedIn stories, you have to have a little bit more thought around this because we don't have that option. So you need to have images on your phone you can use, or else be prepared to take a photo or a video where you are. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm getting up in the morning, I want to do a LinkedIn story. I'm all for behind the scenes and all that stuff, but actually, I'd quite like some filters. I'd quite like to be, photo ready for my LinkedIn stories. So it's not necessarily quick and easy to create the stories, just saying that. However, let's get on to more detail about the stories. Stories last for 24 hours. The maximum length of time for a video story is 20 seconds. You can add story after story after story. So if you have something you want to say and it's going to take 2 minutes, that's fine. It will just give you those 12 short video stories. You are able to add 100 stories in 24 hours. But one of the things that LinkedIn said, so they had a pilot in Australia, was one of the countries that they first trialed LinkedIn stories. And there was a workshop held, I believe, for LinkedIn trainers in Australia. And one of the things they said is do not spam your network. So I would say creating 100 stories in a day could fall under that remit. So probably don't create 100 stories in a day. Well, just don't create 100 stories in a day. I'm not going to be doing that. I suppose it's different if you're at a conference and you want to do stories throughout the day. I can see how that would be useful. But on average, I would say creating highlights of your day or your workshop or whatever it is you're doing your stories about, I'm sure 7 to 8 in a day is probably perfectly fine for most people. I have seen a lot of my network who maybe haven't been using the story format on other platforms who have been posting one thing a day on stories. And the point of stories is that they are a story throughout whatever it is that you are talking about or promoting or raising content about, which means that it's more than one image or one short video. You're actually thinking about a story has chapters, beginnings and ends, paragraphs. So more than one upload a day is what I'm saying, but not 100. So the purpose is to create short, quick, and engaging content to share with your network. I quite like to use the analogy of saying LinkedIn is like an in-person event or a conference that you're going to. So the content you put on your LinkedIn stories, think about that as being the conversation you have with somebody as the speaker on stage has ended, you're going to go and grab a coffee or a muffin or something, and that's your quick, short chat with the person that you're walking to get the coffee with. That's what your LinkedIn stories equivalent is, okay? If you think of it like that. Okay, well, how do you actually use LinkedIn stories for your business? As with everything on LinkedIn, for me, this is about starting conversations with your network. Think about who you want to be connecting with and having conversations with on LinkedIn, and be strategic here. This is your business. Be strategic about the content that you're sharing in your LinkedIn stories. You maybe have a webinar coming up, so you might want to highlight some of the things you're going to be talking about in that webinar. Maybe you've got a product launch coming up. Maybe you want to interview somebody that you've recently worked with. Think about who's watching and what are they interested in, and focus your content on that. So 5 examples of content that will encourage conversation are sharing quick tips and advice on your area of expertise. So I could go on LinkedIn Stories today and talk about, here's how to use LinkedIn Stories. Behind the scenes footage from your office. So a lot of us are working from home. People want to know what it's like at home. If you are setting up for a webinar, do a LinkedIn story about the setup and, did you have to rearrange your bookcase so that it looked webinar appropriate, if that's such a thing. People are really nosy and like to know what's going on behind the scenes. So give them a little insight into how you work when you are working at home, or if you're in a co-working space, a little story from there. A third way is to share customer testimonials. Now, this takes a little bit more work unless you're going to have your customer. You could ask your customer to create a 10, 15-second video and upload that, and that would be awesome. If you do that, make sure you use it elsewhere as well, because remember, these stories last for 24 hours. But you could also take what they've said in their testimonial and create a graphic on it in a story shape, which, by the way, is when your phone is held vertically. So it's a long image rather than, the kind of image you share on Twitter or like a square image or something like that. So you want this to be a longer image. So Canva is a good website for doing something like that. Or you can screenshot your own recommendation sections on LinkedIn. I mean, just think outside that box a little bit. A fourth way to come up with content is sharing news and announcements. So create some interest on what's happening in your business. As I said, if you've got a webinar or a launch coming up, do a little sneak peek of what's going to be happening in those events. And if you're a speaker and you're going to be speaking at a conference, why not give people a little insight into how you come up with your talk or how you pitched your talk? How did you get chosen to be a speaker? Let your personality come through. So that's why video content is so strong. People really connect with you when they see you on video. Now, I absolutely love podcasts. They are my favorite thing. And that's where I get all my learning from. So I love listening to podcasts while walking the dog or while driving in the car. That's how I learn. So I am an audio learner, I guess. But people really like to connect with you when they see you face to face. They love that. And by the by, I'm actually doing a lot more content on my YouTube channel at the moment. So if you want to go and watch some of my video tutorials on using LinkedIn, please go over to youtube.com and look for the Social BNI channel, and you'll see my happy face popping up and talking to you about LinkedIn. The plan is to do a weekly video on there going forward. So that would be really cool if you wanted to go over and subscribe and watch those videos as well. So going back to our stories, ask your audience a question. What do they think about things? Invite them to respond to your stories. And this is actually the most interesting part about the whole LinkedIn stories for me. Far more than ever happened on any other stories platform. I'm getting into really great conversations with my network because I'm replying to their LinkedIn stories and we're having really good chats. So be strategic and reply to people that you want to build connections with and have conversations with and see where it leads. It's really interesting. Also, I've already unfollowed some people because their LinkedIn stories were quite irritating. Apologies if I'm now not following you. Of course, none of my listeners are irritating. You're all very lovely. But yeah, there are people who are very obviously sharing their Instagram stories directly onto LinkedIn. And to me, it is a different audience. And I think you should approach it slightly differently. LinkedIn have said they want this to remain a professional platform. So think about your content for LinkedIn differently to Instagram, but also people who follow Instagram stories and LinkedIn stories, it's pretty obvious which ones have come directly from Instagram. I'm all for repurposing your content, but not like literally directly putting it in two places. Be interested to know what my good friend Amy from Content 10X thought about that. I might have to ask her in a LinkedIn story. In fact, that's a note I'm going to take now and do that. So what else do you need to know about LinkedIn stories? You can post stories from your personal profile and from your company page. Another win for company page